welcome you to Diabetes Sisters live class webinar, Diabetes Organizing. My name is Brandy Barnes, and I am the CEO of Diabetes Sisters, and I will be moderating the webinar today. As we start 2015, many of us have goals that are in mind to help us live our everyday lives, including organizing our diabetes. So I'm pleased to be able to introduce Susan Weiner, who will be leading today's webinar. Susan is the 2015 AADE Diabetes Educator of the Year, and she has co-authored several books, including her latest, The Complete Diabetes Organizer, Your Guide to a Less Stressful and More Manageable Diabetes Life. Among her many accolades, Susan is a well-respected lecturer and involved with the American Diabetes Association and the American College of Sports Medicine. Her dedication to helping women with diabetes expands to Diabetes Sisters, where she serves on our advisory council, speaks at our annual conferences, and contributes monthly to articles on the Ask Our CDE column. And we will also be giving away one of her books at the end of this webinar. So at this time, I would like to turn it over to Susan and let her get started.
Unmuted.
Unfortunately, we are having technical difficulties right now. We are trying to get Susan connected, and we hope to have her connected very soon. So just stay tuned for just a few more minutes.
Hi, Brandy. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Okay, I tried again. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to speak today, and thank you for everybody for holding on during that little technical glitch. Next slide, please. And one more slide past this one, because Brandy gave me such a lovely introduction. So I don't know who's seen this show, but this is a picture of the show Hoarding, Buried Alive. And my co-author, Leslie Josell, is one of the professional organizers who was on the show Hoarding, Buried Alive. For those of you who are not familiar with the show, it explores the lives and living conditions of people who have extreme hoarding issues. And many of the people who are on the show also have extreme organizational issues, time management issues, and medical issues as well. So while I was watching this particular episode of Hoarding Buried Alive and watching Leslie deal with this gentleman who was an Elvis impersonator, obviously, I saw her help him get on the road to recovery in his life and to start to follow a roadmap that helped him towards wellness. It was truly amazing. And I thought, as I was watching the show, how although the show shows an extreme example of disorganization, it made me think about how many things need to be organized in lives of people who have diabetes on a daily basis. So it's not just about getting up in the morning and getting dressed and getting ready to go to school or to work or whatever your daily activities are. It's about having the right food with you. It's about leaving enough time in the morning to test your blood sugar. It's about finding the right meal options, record keeping, medical appointments, and diabetes always travels with you, so it's expecting the unexpected when it comes to diabetes management. And people with diabetes, as everybody knows who's listening today, are often overwhelmed with the daily must-dos that go on with diabetes. As a diabetes educator, I want you to feel like you have more time for your want-tos, the things that you want to do with your days, not the things that you always have to do with your days. So that's kind of how I came up with the idea of teaming up with Leslie to write our book and to speak on different aspects of diabetes and diabetes organization. Next slide, please. So I don't know if this is you. This is me sometimes, though, with the Post-it notes and the hair being pulled out. But even if you considered yourself someone who was organized before your diabetes diagnosis, once you were diagnosed with diabetes, you may have felt what I term situational disorganization. So you may have before gotten all your tasks together in the morning and done everything that you needed to do to get your day started and during the day and during your evening hours. But once you threw in blood sugar testing and everything else that goes along with diabetes management and trying to get your exercise together and taking your medications on time, it leads to a lot of situational disorganization during your day. Next slide, please. So today we're going to talk about a few strategies on how organizing skills can help improve your lives. Next slide. I love this saying, don't organize perfect, organize enough. And it goes into my new favorite saying, which is practice makes progress. I'll say that again, practice makes progress. So we want to figure out a few ways, and even if you come away with one or two small strategies to get started on, you're going to build and build and build, and your practice with some of these organizing strategies will help you make a lot of progress in your diabetes management. Next slide, please. So getting your life in order also means getting some of your supplies in order. And we're not only talking about your daily diabetes testing supplies or things that need to go with you when you leave the front door during the day, but by supplies, I just mean everything in your life, with and without having to do directly with diabetes, but just making yourself more organized so you can take better care of yourself. So first, and we'll get to this in a few minutes, you want to look at your entire checklist of everything you need to do in order to get your diabetes a little bit better managed. And then we want to create something called a command central where you can keep all of your extra supplies and things that you need to go to on a daily basis. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, so it's a great way to look at this is to look at different supply categories. Again, looking at your overall life as well as things that need to do with your diabetes. What supplies do you need to use several times a day? And if there are supplies, let's say, for example, for blood sugar testing that you need to use several times a day, do some of those supplies need to be at home? If you work outside the home, do they need to go with you to work? Do you need to keep them at school? Wherever they need to be, make sure that you have those supplies with you and at the ready. If there are supplies that need to be easily reached, keep them with what we call in your prime real estate. If they are stored in your kitchen, something like keeping together, and we'll come back to this, a fast-acting source of carbohydrate like your glucose tablets or something like that, keep that together on a shelf or in an easily reachable drawer. Again, your prime real estate is the area, if you were standing up, between your shoulders and your knees. Okay, so picture that. The area between your shoulders and your knees is your prime real estate. If you were food shopping, the way that things are placed on aisle shelves for you to easily reach them and so that it's marketed towards you is that area between your shoulders and your knees. If you kept your snacks that you didn't want to eat too often on a very high shelf in your kitchen area, you're less likely to reach it. So the things between your shoulders and your knees are your prime real estate. Supplies that require refrigeration, whatever that might be, and we'll talk a little bit more about refrigeration and keeping that organized in a moment. Keeping your refrigerator organized just makes cooking a little bit easier. If you want to keep any supplies out of the reach of children, and I would add to that pets, please do so. And we'll go on to the next slide because I have a lot more to cover here. Next slide, please. Picture this. Think like a library in the days when we used to actually physically go to the library and take out books. Think like a library and group like with like. For example, if you went physically into a bookstore or physically into a library, cookbooks are grouped together, children's books are grouped together, reference books might be grouped together, romance novels. In your home or in your kitchen, group like things with like so that you can find them easily. This makes particular sense in your kitchen. Next slide, please. So I put this picture here as we're going to talk about the morning routine, and I know I'm going quickly here, but I just wanted to cover a bunch of these topics so that you can pick up a couple of different great strategies. This is a picture of an analog clock, right? We don't see these too often, but this is a picture of an analog clock. We're used to everything being digital. And if you are someone that has a problem with getting tasks done on time, because we have so much to do during our day, don't we? Looking at an analog clock such as this one, doesn't have to be as cute, and notice, Brandy, that I did pick an orange clock for Diabetes Sisters. On an analog clock, you're seeing the sweep of time. So as the clock tick, tick, ticks and moves, you actually see time move. If you are someone that needs to go through your tasks a little bit more quickly, place an analog clock in every room of your home so that you can finish a task on a timely manner and move to the next one. I find personally that when something is digital, it is much harder to notice the sweep of time. Next slide, please. So this is a perfect slide to not use in a PowerPoint presentation because there is too much information on this slide. And I used it in our presentation for a purpose, just to show a morning checklist of somebody who might have diabetes. You can probably add 20 more things to this morning checklist if you really looked at the things you have to get done in the morning before you possibly leave the house, correct? But here are some of the things that I came up with. What's important when you're getting organized in the morning to understand is that your morning has a finite amount of time. There are so many precious minutes that we can keep in our morning time. So there's an amount of time from when you wake up from the time that you leave the house in the morning, no matter what your agenda is for the day. Whereas in the evening, even though your evenings can be packed, it's not as finite amount of time in the morning if you do have to get out of the house and punch in to wherever you are going. So the morning is a time where we want to find a way to get in some of our strategies so that we can accomplish the tasks that we need to have done in the morning. And anything that we can do in the morning, that we can do before the precious morning moments arrive, that we could check off the evening before or do in advance, would be great. Next slide, please. So let's look at a couple of things that we can possibly do the night before. Of course, we all know this, to lay out our clothes the night before. But if you have children or younger people living in the house, or even if you're taking care of elderly parents, or you're the caregiver for anyone other than yourself, have their clothes and their things and your discussions with what they need to do done the night before as well, so that you can take care of all of the things on a very detailed morning checklist. Prepare your lunch and your snacks and your breakfast and anything else you can do in advance the night before. And that means with other people that may be living in your home with you, have a discussion with them of what they may need for those items as well, so that you're not stuck in the morning making those type of decisions. Now, this is a really kind of cool picture that we have here too, because I find it hard to sometimes describe what I mean by a launching pad. And a launching pad is a place in your home to corral all the items that you need or that a family member needs before he or she leaves the house in the morning. So I like to use my launching pad right by the front door. It can be some place in your home where you're not going to forget what you need for the day. And any kind of bag that you keep your diabetes supplies in, that you would need to restock, of course, as needed, and something that you can put whatever refrigerated items you have, like your food, that'll be in an insulated bag in your diabetes supply bag as you leave for the day. If you keep those things on a launching pad, and I kind of put that in the framework of if a child had a backpack or you needed to bring a briefcase to work so you don't forget things, leave it in an area that's shown kind of here so that you don't forget to take anything with you in the morning. It's almost like having a checklist, but being prepared so that nothing is forgotten. Next slide, please. So going back to those precious minutes in the morning, time your tasks. If you are someone that has problems timing your tasks in the morning, for a week or two, it's a great idea to maybe write down how long each of your morning tasks take, so that way you can add, cut back time as needed when you go through your morning routine. And another really great organizing tip is to keep going forward in the morning. So once you leave your bedroom and you go into the bathroom, and once you leave your bathroom and you go into the kitchen, teach yourself not to go backwards. So if you kept an analog clock in every room, and it may even benefit you to keep an analog clock in the bathroom once you're starting to learn how to time your tasks, you continue to move forward from room to room. This way you're going to have time to increase your time to test your blood sugar, eat your breakfast, take your medication on time, make sure that you do your stretching, your breathing, everything that you want to do in the morning, and you'll get much more done than you may have previously ever been able to. Beat the clock. Kind of make a little bit of a game out of it. If you set it, these two together, beat the clock and set it to music. I love using a playlist in the morning. Let's say that you take 3 of your favorite songs and you say by the time the first song is done, you've checked your blood sugar and you move on to grooming in the bathroom. And by the time the second song is done, you're out of the bathroom and into the kitchen. Whatever works for you, if you set it to music, you're going to beat the clock. And timers and alarms can really be your friends. It sounds like it could be annoying, but they can be your friends. If you set analog clocks away from your nightstand, so you need to get up to shut it off, if you're a procrastinator like me, you'll get out of bed in the morning to do it. Next slide, please. The organized kitchen. So not all kitchens look like this, but this is an idea. I like this slide because I wanted to show 2 things on here. One, clear is the way to go and labeled is the way to go. But here we put like things with like we talked about with the library, so that you see how things are put together and so that you can find them easily. Next slide. So a couple of things to point out on here, just to mention in terms of kitchen clutter. As a certified diabetes educator and as a registered dietitian and as a nutritionist, it's great to impart my knowledge and to discuss with the people that I work with about carbohydrate counting and healthy eating and all the great things that we need to do to help to control our blood sugars and stay healthy when we have diabetes. But I often wonder why, knowing that food preparation is so important, why don't people do it? And if you look at your kitchen and if your countertops are super cluttered, and if you can't find things in your refrigerator or things are growing in the back as a science experiment, then you're not going to be able to properly prepare the meals that are healthy to help maintain your healthy diabetes lifestyle. So look at your kitchen, and if your kitchen looks like you're organizing things by fit rather than use, we need to flip that around. If you come home from food shopping and you're stuffing things into your cabinets or into your refrigerator, you're shoving them in just because they fit, that's not the proper way, especially when you have limited kitchen space, to keep things together. So if you use things more often, keep them in that prime real estate, that space between your shoulders and your knees, where you can find them easily. You know how you may have heard that maybe cinnamon is something that's healthy for you, right? So you go to the supermarket and you buy cinnamon and you come home to find that you bought it the last 3 shopping trips, but you forgot that you had it because you stuffed it in the deep, dark spaces in the back of your pantry. So that's tying up not only a lot of money, but it's silly because you're not going to use what you need to use. Next slide, please. And this is, I'm going to be able to have these slides posted on the website, but just to let you know, these are a bunch of apps that can be very helpful for your kitchen, and there are new apps coming out each and every day. So here are some that are useful to use in cooking and for storage and for grocery shopping. I could do a whole 3-hour webinar on grocery shopping. Did you know that there are 45,000 items available in the supermarket? So plan your list before you go, either pen to paper or use an app when you try to navigate the aisles of the supermarket. Next slide, please. And if you are looking to declutter and organize your kitchen, here are a couple of really good points to get started. Toss anything that's broken or chipped or rusty or missing parts. Just get rid of it. Those things are huge space robbers. Time to get rid of them. If you have any items that you don't use or don't plan to use, donate them perhaps to somebody who can use it. And move anything out of your normal kitchen usage area that you don't use regularly. For example, Christmas china, box that up and put it in a space where you'll label it and you'll know where it is every year when you want to use it. Or a Thanksgiving tray or platter, you don't need to refer to that all the time. So put it in a place where you don't have to see it every day, and you can make more room in your kitchen for other items. And it's not past me that some of these slides show a nice big kitchen space, and a lot of us don't have this kitchen space, but it's just a way to show you how things are grouped together and how a clean countertop looks. Next slide, please. So again, the last part of that was to group like with like so that you can find it and find your ingredients very easily. You may have the greatest idea for preparing this really healthy chicken dish, and you have all of your items ready, and you even arranged your cookware so that you can find your pots and pans without them falling on your head. But if you forgot to take out the chicken and it's frozen, or you forgot to buy the chicken, the dish will not come together. So if you group like items with like, you're more likely to find them. Next slide. And slide after this. We can move on, just in the sake of time. So the takeaway here is to make sure that everything is visual. Clear is always king. If you can see it and it's labeled, you're much more likely to use it. And also, I'm really into airspace. Next slide, please, because I'll show you kind of what that means. I love this idea. This is a picture of a clear plastic shoe bag. Remember these old-fashioned clear plastic shoe bags? So they have little hooks on them. You can hang this on the back of any door. Let's just say a pantry door on a little hook or something like that. And you can put pre-portioned snacks in each of these carbohydrate-controlled snacks or calorie-counted snacks in each compartment that's cleared so that you can get it as a grab-and-go snack. Next slide, please. And I know you'll see my love of dog on all my slides. Next slide, please. And just quickly, a quick travel checklist, and I always include this because diabetes does travel with us. So, and I have a lot more detail about this in the book. When you do travel, make sure that you keep all important information on your person and travel with at least twice the amount of medications that you need in case you're delayed for any reason when you're traveling. Always make sure that you have on your person, not packed in your luggage, but on your person, your doctor's contact information, your emergency contact information, etc. And I also have this information in my book, but very important. If you're traveling over time zones, especially if it's more than 3 hours, you need to work with your physician or your healthcare provider. I recommend at least 6 weeks in advance when possible to discuss changes in your medication, insulin dosage, or your eating plan with your CDE, because there's a lot that goes into that in terms of organization and management in your diabetes care. Next slide. Always take the remembering out of remembering. You have so much to remember. We all do. Life is very busy. So when you can, set the reminders on and alerts on your phone, and tell someone that you may need some help or that you do have diabetes if you're comfortable with doing that. And if you're not, at least use visual cues. Anything that's visual will take the remembering out of remembering. Next slide, please. We're almost done. Next slide. So some final thoughts. First, when you get through the diabetes must-dos, things that have to be done for you to properly manage your diabetes, whether that's including, I should say, blood sugar testing, taking your medications, your insulin, trying to eat a healthy diet most of the time, and we all should be doing that. Then you have more time for things that you want to do in your life that may or may not have anything to do with diabetes, but just things that you want to accomplish or want to relax. So to get more of the must-dos done so we can do more want-tos, try to adopt at least 2 of these organizing techniques that we talked about today. Organizing your diabetes supplies and improving your daily health care routines will be oh so helpful in improving your overall health care. and try to use some of the kitchen space saving techniques and strategies. You'll be so glad that you did. Next slide. Remember, we don't organize perfect. We organize enough. No one is perfect. Remember, we just want to make progress. Practice means progress. Next slide. And so I know that I've used my half hour, but I think my next slide will have my contact information. If anybody has any questions at all, please, please, please reach out to me. I would love to hear from you. Brandy?
Yes, thank you very much, Susan. I'm going to remember some of those tips, especially practice makes progress. I like that one. We do have a few minutes left so that we can answer a few questions. We had one question that came in, and this question is, what is your recommendation on storing test strips, pump supplies, and knowing when it's time to reorder supplies?
What's my recommendation for reordering supplies? So in terms of, I guess you have to look at a few different things when it comes to reordering supplies. And I do talk about that a little bit in the supply chapter as well. Keeping lists of everything, including when your doctor appointments are, when your supplies are going to expire, when it's time to reorder them. And when I mean by expire, anything that has an expiration date on it is really lost money if we let it expire and it's not being used. And that includes testing strips, which are, of course, very expensive. So we have to keep things in order, and again in containers where you can see what is in there, and keep those supplies that you're using together grouped together. Remember, think like a library so that you don't lose track of what you have. Even something as we don't think is as important as batteries, they do expire too. So if you keep backup batteries someplace, you have to check the expiration date. So always keep in mind the idea of first in, first out, that old FIFO rule, and keep things rotated. Put yourself on a schedule, just like if you are taking different oral medications in a pill box that you may fill once a week, and you put yourself on a schedule for doing that. Do the same thing with your supplies, and do the same thing with scheduling your doctor appointments and your follow-up appointments with specialists on a calendar so that you have appointment reminders to reorder everything. It's also a little complicated with pump supplies and with those people who use CGMs, because you have to go through when the insurance companies will reimburse you for certain supplies. So keep yourself reminders and keep on top of it, and talk to your healthcare provider about them helping you out with orders and when they can write prescriptions as well.
All right. Well, before we sign off, I want to thank each of you for registering and participating in today's webinar. We had over 50 people register, and as promised, we've taken all the registrants and entered them into a drawing for a copy of Susan's latest book, The Complete Diabetes Organizer. And I am pleased to announce that Lisa Paulson is the winner, so congratulations, Lisa. We will be contacting you to send out your prize. Thank you again, everyone. I hope you learned at least one new tip and took away something healthy to put into practice. So I look forward to seeing you on our next webinar, which is scheduled for March 18th, and it is on diabetes and eye disease. And again, thank you, Susan, for such a great presentation.
It was my pleasure, and if anybody has any questions, again, please reach out.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.